At the heart of an industrial revolution is an innovation that changes everything. Building AI Boston sees artificial intelligence as a renaissance. From the heart of innovation and the mecca of tech learning, we bring you AI for Real People, a conversation for everyone. Dr. Catherine Brownstein is an assistant professor in pediatrics at Harvard Medical School and a research associate in the Division of Genetics and Genomics at Boston Children's Hospital. She specializes in the discovery of new genes for rare and orphan diseases, and today we'll discuss her work in the fields of genome sequencing and analysis and how AI is impacting medical research. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thanks so much for having me.
You know, the Boston Children's Hospital is home to the world's largest pediatric research enterprise, and we've only mentioned a few of your accomplishments, but I gather you're a very busy woman. So I just want to start by saying we're honored that you're here with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to get into some of the challenges that you face in the field of rare diseases and genomics, but I'm wondering if you can just start by telling us a little bit about what first inspired your interest in this field.
So I kind of fell into it. I always thought I was going to be a forester, actually, and biologist, like working in the outdoors, and did my master's in forestry and public health, working in toxicology. And the professor I was working with actually was cross-listed in genetics. So I wanted to go back for my PhD, and I applied to work with him, and then he ended up leaving. But then I was in the genetics department without ever having taken a genetics course. And I had to really, it was trial by fire, but I loved every second of it and just feel incredibly lucky to be working in this field right now. It's a really exciting time, and you know, I've gotten to be a part of it, which I just feel extremely fortunate.
I love that answer. I love it speaks to a work-life balance that I think you inherently look at bigger picture things. I know that when you had me at forestry, because I really like the bigger picture, I love relaxing in nature, and I can relate to the tuning into the beauty of nature as a basis for just mental health. So it sounds like an incredible beginning.
I still really enjoy that, and my house is like a zoo because I have to get my animal fix a different way now. But yeah, I definitely think it's so important that we never forget the importance of nature.
Agreed. And Cara would agree with that too.
Absolutely. I have many dogs, and probably they'll start barking during this podcast recording, because why not? Why wouldn't that happen? So I do love that. And I think there's so much more to sort of, people seem to be understanding forests and trees and the impact all the different sort of green space has on our state of well-being. So it's kind of an interesting space to look into.
Yeah.
I locked my dog out, but she'll probably start barking at some point too.
Well, they'll talk to each other. It's good. Yes, dogs are amazing. So I actually have a background not like yours, not science-based, but was in public health communications for a long time. And one of the things we tried to do, and I still try to do in science communications, which isn't always easy, is to take really complicated things like genetics and make it somewhat understandable to a lay audience. So how would you describe what genetics really is doing? What are we trying to do in a very basic way with studying the human genome?
We're trying to understand the human body in health and disease. And some diseases you're born with, and figuring out what is causing that at the very basic level helps us learn how to treat it and prevent it from happening if it's not something that you're born with, but happens gradually as you get older. A lot of the conditions we look at at Boston Children's are de novo, which means they're not in either parent. They just happened in this child, like lightning striking. during very early development, or sometimes you inherit, like, both parents are carriers. They don't actually have the condition, but then the child just gets two faulty copies of a gene or something like that, from each parent, and unfortunately has the condition.
I think Cara and I can both appreciate the parents' point of view. I want to just, highlight something that's unique to Boston Children's is that you tackle rare diseases. Can you break down exactly what an orphan disease is, aka a medical refugee?
So an orphan disease, like, a lot of times people use the word orphan or phrase orphan disease and rare disease interchangeably, but there is a little bit of a difference between the two of them. Rare diseases are just that, rare, but orphan diseases include rare ones, but that researchers aren't investigating that much, or if at all. And sometimes it's because they're just so rare, it's only been seen one time. Or we think it's only one time, but like now, due to people speaking to each other across the globe, you can a lot of times turn that one case and find a couple more, and which is always wonderful for making sure that you have the right gene that you think is causative. And also it's nice sometimes for families to connect and have shared experiences and share what works for them. So.
And in terms of medical research, it feels to me like if I put myself in the shoes of that parent that's suddenly facing an orphan disease that maybe doesn't get the kind of research attention, let's just say, I'm awfully grateful that that's your expertise, that's what you're going for. And can you tell me a little bit about how the role of AI has really stepped that up and allowed you to do so much more?
Oh, it's amazing. So just before I was here, I was cleaning up a data set, and I thought I had cleaned it up completely and gotten out duplicate entries. And then I ran it through and I said, oh, are there any duplicates? And even though like I had looked at it manually and like done all the checks that you normally do, it caught like 8 things that I had messed up. And, that's just like the example that that I was doing right before speaking to you. And if I had gone on and used that data set, it would have been like slightly wrong. So like, I mean, it probably wouldn't have been enough to like change the results dramatically, but like, it's just making everything a little more correct and a little better, being able to work faster, not spend so much time on mundane things that suck up a ton of time, and being able to like switch gears really quickly when a gene is a dead end and okay, it's not that, and go on to the next thing. And it just really has streamlined life in the genetics world.
Yes, I like that. And a couple of things. So it just increases the human ability sort of to computational power that you have, right? And the ability that you have to parse the data, because, medical research, any kind of medical work, you're just dealing with loads and loads and loads of information, right? To find the right answer. So in medical research in particular, you can't look at it all. And especially if you're looking at something as complex as the human genome, right? So tell us about that. I mean, I can't even imagine the variables that must exist in that world when you're trying to trace down a specific cause. So how does AI extend your ability to solve problems?
Well, you can't be an expert in everything. Like, it's impossible. And right now, it's really manual. You find a gene, you look it up, you go through, you see if it matches the patient's symptoms or phenotypes. And now we can just do that a heck of a lot faster. And it takes the human error rate. Well, we'll take the human error out of it, which is always it's a huge advancement. It's amazing and then just the ability to reanalyze and knowledge doubles so quickly, and to go back and go through every single case. Like I work at the Manton Center for Orphan Disease Research within Boston Children's Hospital, and no case is ever closed. No family is ever considered like definitively solved, because like, some patients can have two things, and, variants go from being uncertain significance to likely pathogenic, or they get downgraded to likely benign. So like you always want to go through and reanalyze, and being able to make it just much more simple and inexpensive and accurate to reanalyze. It's a total game changer. It's going to be a game changer for patients and for everyone.
The cost part gets me excited because, as you know, in rare diseases, right, very well, and especially when you think about treatment, like one of the barriers is the pharma companies. It's a big amount of R&D money to put into maybe something that has a very small patient pool. So that just hopefully seems like a place where AI could significantly change.
Oh, get rid of bottlenecks. Yeah. Right now, even the bottlenecks for patients finding each other will hopefully be reduced with, being able to find each other easier.
Yeah, no, that seems like a broader impact on just, you can extrapolate what we've just said and talk about research in general, but particularly in genomics, it's such a massive innovation in and of itself. And now we're on the verge of another massive innovation with AI, which seems to the untrained eye or ear, those listening to us, it seems like AI changes week by week. There's so many advancements. I know that this is a brand new announcement for you, but I know in particular you've just developed a partnership with OpenAI, and you may not be able to speak to that specifically, but do you see this as just yet another evolution and a larger evolution of research, and in particular to what you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's, I always tell this story that like I did my PhD, I graduated in 2008, and it took me 6 years to map a translocation. Now you can do it in 6 days, or less, maybe 3 days. And like, I mean, I'm old, I'm not that old. Like it's just moving so quickly. And then I think AI again is going to be this huge thing that increases the speed and the ability to make these discoveries that, it's just going to be a game changer. Or it already is a game changer.
Sorry, what's a translocation?
Oh, it's when chromosomes break and reattach in the wrong spots. So a piece of chromosome 9 will go onto chromosome 13, 13 will go back onto 9. Like that's, and even though the genome was published, like I had to it was really slow, painstaking work to figure out where the chromosomes broke and reattached. But now we have like machines that can just like read directly across, and it's just a matter of a couple days to get the actual result of that. And it just kind of blows my mind. And I think it's going to be another thing where we're explaining to our grandkids how we had to do work before AI and look everything up. Totally. And they're just going to look at us and be like, oh man, that must have been terrible. So slow.
How did you survive in that horrible world?
Yeah.
Well, I know, you know what, if you were allowed or you want to, I mean, some of the background stuff that I've learned about you or the fields of study that you're involved in are immensely intriguing to me. I mean, you've done research on everything from sudden infant death syndrome to what I think is really interesting is your work in early child psychosis. Like there are things that are presenting now as schizophrenia. I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about your work, but I will just ask an open-ended, what are you really primarily excited about in terms of treatment of the disease that you feel is really impactful or important at this time?
So I think being able to diagnose patients younger and start interventions younger is going to make a world of difference. And not all precision medicine is medication too. It's just getting the families the support they need, and, you know, understanding which treatments work better for which genetic diagnoses. And, you know, one gene that we worked with, it seemed like the children did really much better if they had a nap in the middle of the day, you know.
Wow.
And that's precision medicine in a way, you know, like, okay, you have this, like, naps really help. But that's in one hand. The other hand is like understanding, okay, you know, the goal is to have the right medication the first time and not have to go through these trial and errors that so many patients have to go through right now. And even just being able to say a diagnosis. I went to a family meeting once, and there wasn't a treatment for the gene, that genetic disorder. And I asked a patient, like, well, does it mean anything to have a diagnosis? And he said, yes, because I can explain what's wrong with me in 3 seconds, as opposed to like 3 minutes of an explanation. And so it's little things like that where, you know, it's every little tiny step forward is still a step forward.
I will say that that is one word that jumps out at me in reading your background is clarity.
Yeah.
You know, you're clarifying things, and I appreciate the power of a nap. I'm telling all these people, hey, the first nap is the most important one for brain function and cognition, and that brain is building. And it's, you know, if people really understood the phenomenon of how complex that brain development is. I nerd out on neuroscience and brain development, and when I studied anatomy, it was all about brain stuff for me. But so and I was that protective mom that beat everybody back and said, don't call me between this hour and this hour. That first nap means everything to me. So I'm excited that you look at things holistically. And I think, yeah, everything I read about you is true to science in the very best way, you know, really looking at everything. So anyway.
And then the word precision. If we're talking about words, nap is one of my favorite words too. Love my naps. We all got so used to naps during COVID, right? It like messed us all up. But anyway, so precision, right? So precision medicine, right? So a lot of people in public health get kind of stressed out by the idea of precision medicine because it means individualizing. The people usually who are, you know, able to afford the precision or the individualizer, people with more resources. But maybe, and so if you want to see if you think about this, is AI would allow precision medicine to actually be more widely applied. In that, like what you're saying, it can really tailor. So tell folks what precision medicine means, and maybe in the sense of genomics as well, and how they're interrelated.
Well, I'm a PhD, I'm not an MD, so I don't actually treat patients. So my understanding of precision medicine is tailored treatments to that actual condition and as granular as possible. So to me, it would be the genetics and what is wrong at a genetic level and being able to address that. But, you know, I know that to me, the benefit here and the exciting part is the ability to scale. And if you get the genetics quicker, and it's also simpler to interpret the genetics because, you know, you can produce that accurate report in seconds as opposed to like having to slog through a ton of articles, then it translates to treatments faster and publications faster to document that treatment, and then increasing access so everyone can see those publications, or they don't even need to, like they're searchable and findable. And it's just being able to scale precision medicine, which is the goal here. And we just don't want it to be like, you know, Boston Children's Hospital and a handful of these tertiary medical centers all over the world. We want it to be like everybody gets the right treatment the first time based on the genetics.
I love that. And then if you have a place of people like physicians or people taking care of patients in rural places or places that don't have amazing academic medical centers like we do, they can plug into some sort of system, and they don't need to be genetic experts themselves, but there can be a simpler way, right, to find out what's going on with their patient.
Exactly. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Well, you're really fortunate to be part of the Boston Children's Hospital. It's not like any other hospital. And so, what does it mean to you to be rooted in one of the world's most powerful medical innovation hubs?
It's so inspiring. Like, you know, my colleagues are brilliant, and I love being the dumbest one in the room. Like, you're
I don't
just
want
like,
to be in that room. That sounds intimidating.
no, it's amazing. Like you always want to be like
Yeah.
just looking around and being like, oh my gosh, these people are so cool. They're
Yeah.
superheroes. And I don't know. I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky in my lab that I have like brilliant technicians and researcher students. The students that come through are so inspired and wanting to learn as much as possible. I feel very lucky.
Amazing. And do you see them leaning? I mean, you can't speak for all of them in one swoop, but are they leaning heavily into this, into relying on AI and other technologies? Is that just kind of part and parcel of the career path at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I tell them to use AI for certain tasks. So, like, I think there has to be a little bit of a shift in mindset. And like children's, we're also very lucky. We have an AI tool that's behind the firewall. So it's not as though you're putting information out into the universe by that. So we're able to keep it secure. And so we don't have a lot of the worries that a lot of other places do. So I think people are adopting it quickly because it's fun.
That's true, because medical information, right? You have to be so careful. HIPAA, not PURPA, HIPAA. Oh, you probably have both. You have PURPA and HIPAA and everything else in your school.
Yeah.
At Harvard.
It's tough to break down ethical considerations, but I mean, I just appreciate the ecosystem. Cara, I know you appreciate it too from a personal standpoint. Wasn't one of your kids affected when you was young?
Yeah, so being in Boston is such a gift, right, in so many ways. And sometimes we take it for granted, especially when we're trying to commute through Longwood to get somewhere else and get annoyed because we're sitting in traffic for, a really long time. So for folks outside of Boston, Longwood is the area where there's all these incredible hospitals, including Boston Children's. And so it gets very crowded. I think it's probably one of the densest medical areas, but we have people, coming in from all over the world for these services, but yet it's in our back door. So it goes without saying that when you have little kids, like I did at one point, and something goes wrong, it is so reassuring to know that this hospital is just right there down the street. It's, some people have to fly around the world to get to that kind of care. And so in Boston, we just have that, and it's right at our fingertips. And it's very lucky. We're very lucky to have that kind of ecosystem. So yes, and one of my sons had kidney reflux when he was a baby, and it turns out, he's fine. It doesn't compare to some of the terrible things families have to go through, but I was just very impressed by the care and the consideration. And they had a very good trick for how you put a baby through a X-ray machine like that. They give them sugar water to suck on.
Oh, wow.
They just give them this basically like a pacifier just full of sugar water, and the baby's like, oh,
this is amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. The nurses have all the tricks. Yeah.
My daughter split her chin open, of course, the day before school, her starting a new school. And so we went to Boston Children's ER. I'll never forget, as they're stitching her up, they had a person just holding the iPad over her so she could watch like a cartoon while doing this. And I was just like, they thought of everything. Like, that's just amazing. And it just made it such like a better experience, like, and less stressful for her. Like, we're incredibly lucky to live here. And, one thing is just bringing that knowledge and that research and making it widely accessible to everybody.
No, I think you hit it on the head when you said, how do we make this scalable? I mean, that's the prime concern. And, we feel that way about our show. We think of Boston as a state of mind, but you've really brought that to mind when you're talking about how to bring this kind of way of thinking out to a broader audience. I know you don't have a crystal ball, and we're not asking you to be an AI expert, but I'm just wondering, is there anything as a researcher that you're really looking forward to being able to do in the future, and anything that you feel really hopeful about as far as AI and how it impacts medical research?
I'm just so psyched for to feel like I've done the best I possibly could when looking at a case. And right now, I feel like there's always like this nagging voice in the back of my head that I missed something, you know?
Mm.
Like if another I have like a panic actually when I close the browser to look at something that I miss something, you know? And I really am looking forward to feeling like, okay, we've analyzed it to the best of our ability at this juncture. And as our ability increases, we're going to be able to reanalyze and still feel that sense of comfort.
Mm.
I think also we owe that to the families that are so generously signing up for research. And, you know, a lot of times their children are very sick or they're sick, you know, and we owe it to them to do the absolute best job we can. And AI, I think, will help us do that.
No, I appreciate your insight, and I appreciate that, it's not like you're whipping up the next best recipe for cookies. You're definitely in the trenches of the most important work. As a mom, I thank you. I mean, I'm just grateful to know that this research that you're doing will go out to the world and will affect me on my side of the country and around the world. So, again, we're so honored to have you here breaking this down with us, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a really interesting conversation.
Thank you for joining us on Building AI Boston. Stay tuned for more enlightening episodes that put you at the forefront of the conversations shaping our future.